It's Wednesday, October 29th here in Seoul. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Hwang Ji-hye filling in for Laah Hyun-kyung. And these are the stories we're following at this hour. President Park Geun-hye asked lawmakers for support to pass pending bills to prop up the economy and reform the pension program for government workers in her second parliamentary address. And efforts to recover a body found in the sunken Sewol-ho ferry continue, but fast currents are hampering the retrieval operation. And the prospects are dim for inter-Korean talks that were scheduled to take place this week. North Korea says it will not participate in the talks until anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaigns by South Korean activists are banned. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's parliamentary address today. She laid out the details of the government's budget for next year, which is nearly $20 billion more than this year. The president appealed to lawmakers to swiftly pass the budget bill and other bills related to revitalizing the economy. Choi Yoo-sun has more.
Despite the risks of financial losses and ballooning debt, the president said if Korea doesn't invest more to address the challenges of low growth, low inflation, and a weak Japanese yen, the Korean economy could fall into a long-term slump. Manufacturing production in the third quarter shrank by nearly 1%, and exports also dropped significantly.
지금이야말로 우리 경제가 도약하느냐, 정체하느냐의 갈림길에서 경제를 다시 세울 수 있는 마지막 골든 타임입니다.
Referring to her three-year economic innovation plan, President Park talked about her vision of a creative economy which involves converging IT and different sectors to spur growth and stimulate the job market. And so the government will increase its support for entrepreneurs, startups, and small to mid-sized firms next year by 17% to a total of some $8 billion. The government has also significantly increased funds for safety and welfare to bolster both the hard and software of safety management and to provide the country's seniors and low-income households with more financial support. President Park also asked the parliament to cooperate in completing by the year's end reforms of the public pension system, which has suffered an expanding deficit.
그동안 국가를 위해 헌신해온 공무원들의 희생을 요구해야 한다는 점에서 솔직히 어느 정부도 이런 개혁이 두렵고 피하고 싶을 것입니다. 그러나 매년 막대한 국민 세금이 투입되어야 하는 상황을 그대로 방치할 수는 없습니다.
Before wrapping up her speech, President Park said the government managing finances alone will do no good unless the parliament moves to pass a backlog of bills designed to improve people's livelihoods and strengthen the nation's safety system. Choi Yoo-sun, ARIRANG News.
And right after her policy address at the National Assembly, President Park met with the leaders of the rival parties. In this, her second meeting with the party chairs and policymakers, she once again called for the swift passage of anti-corruption and economic stimulus bills, as well as those related to revising the pension program for public servants. The president also emphasized the need to pass legislation related to the Sewol-ho ferry disaster, including one on government restructuring and another that would allow the government to go after illegally obtained assets. Moving on to the retrieval operation for the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, efforts to recover a body found yesterday inside the submerged ship are being hampered by poor conditions at sea. The body, which is believed to be that of a female student, was discovered just a day after the victims' families decided not to lift the vessel until all the missing victims are found. Kim Min-ji has more.
Recovery operations are being delayed off Korea's southwestern coast for a body that has been found on the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. The government's disaster response headquarters said divers tried Wednesday morning to recover the body, but failed due to poor underwater visibility and fast currents. Divers will resume their efforts to reach the body again later in the evening when the currents subside. The body, presumed to be that of a female student, was spotted near a restroom on the fourth deck of the ferry. It's the first body seen inside the wreckage in 102 days and comes more than 6 months after the ferry capsized and sank. Victims' families raised doubts about the efficiency of ongoing search efforts, saying the latest discovery was made in the exact location they had specifically asked divers to search. Divers said they had searched the area more than a dozen times previously, but believe currents have recently carried the body to where it is now. The discovery pushes the death toll in the tragedy to 295, with 9 still missing. This past weekend, victims' families voted to continue the underwater search operation inside the ferry and to hold off on raising the 6,800-ton vessel. The representatives for the victims' families on Tuesday called for increased search efforts and to prioritize the wishes of the families as promised by the president. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
And over to the highly anticipated high-level inter-Korean talks, North Korea says it will not participate in the talks that were slated for this week until the anti-Pyongyang leaflet campaigns by South Korean activists are banned. In a message sent via the Inter-Korean military hotline early Wednesday morning, North Korea said it's up to Seoul to decide whether to hold the second round of high-level talks or to cling to the leaflet launches. South Korea's Unification Ministry said that although it wants to resolve pending inter-Korean issues through dialogue, it cannot give in to Pyongyang's unjustifiable demands. The ministry added it does not plan to make additional proposals for talks for now. The United Nations has gotten one step closer to referring North Korean officials to The Hague for human rights abuses. A draft proposal on the violations taking place within the North has been made official, and the UN General Assembly could vote on it as soon as next month. Park Ji-won has the details.
The United Nations Third Committee, which deals with social, humanitarian, and cultural matters, has released a North Korean human rights draft proposal online. The 8-page draft urges the UN Security Council to take appropriate action to address the dire human rights situation in the North. It also says referrals to the International Criminal Court are in order, although it doesn't mention specific names. The draft expresses serious concerns about North Korea's systematic, extensive, and long-term crimes against humanity and denounces rampant human rights violations taking place inside political prison camps, which include forced abortions, torture, and starvation. The draft proposal was based on a 400-page report on North Korea's human rights situation published by an independent UN commission. The Third Committee is expected to pass the draft sometime next month, to be followed by a vote at the UN General Assembly. Adoption of the proposal by the General Assembly would not be legally binding, but South Korean officials say the vote would be a statement in and of itself. Marzuki Darusman, the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea, said Tuesday that North Korea had invited him for a visit so he could investigate the human rights allegations firsthand. But that offer was made under one condition, that the UN remove the stipulation about referring North Korean officials to the ICC in a draft submitted to the Third Committee. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Staying on the North Korean issue, can the speculation surrounding Kim Jong-un's 6-week disappearance finally be put to rest? South Korea's spy agency claims the North Korean leader vanished from the public eye in early September after having a cyst removed from one of his ankles. Hwang Ji-hye reports.
Where could North Korean leader Kim Jong-un have been during his 40-day absence? South Korea's National Intelligence Service says the young leader was on his surgery bed, getting a cyst removed from his right ankle. During a closed-door inspection on Tuesday, officials from the spy agency told lawmakers that a foreign medical team traveled to North Korea between September and October to treat Kim. They added he is recovering from the surgery, although his weight problem and frequent inspection tours could hamper a full recovery. Since July, Kim was seen walking with a limp, and until now, no clear explanation had been given as to why he mysteriously disappeared and then reappeared sporting a cane. During its briefing, the spy agency also revealed the rampant human rights violations of the communist state, citing 50 public executions this year alone. It said some 10 party officials in the north were executed for watching South Korean soap operas, while other senior officers were demoted by 2 ranks for poor accuracy rate of artillery. The agency also suspects North Korea may have expanded a labor camp in Gilju to relocate political prisoners out of its most notorious concentration camp in Yodok. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
And satellite images indicate that the North could be exploring the possibility of launching ballistic missiles from submarines. Although that may open a new chapter in submarine warfare for Pyongyang, experts say it's too soon to worry. Kim Hyun-bin has more.
North Korea has built a new test stand to develop ballistic missiles that can be launched from submarines. This according to a new report published on U.S.-based website 38 North, which says commercial satellite imagery has identified the installation at the Sinpo South shipyard in the north. The report says the new stand is the right size and designed to be used for the research, development, and testing of ballistic missiles out of a launch tube, as well as evaluating the compatibility with submarines and surface combatants. Experts say, however, the communist regime will need a couple more years to be capable of topping its submarines with ballistic missiles. But if it succeeds, it will represent a new threat, as it could give the North the capacity to eventually replace the missile with a nuclear warhead. Last week, the U.S. Forces Korea commander and the South Korean defense chief both acknowledged that the North may have succeeded in miniaturizing a nuclear warhead. North Korea has roughly 80 submarines in its arsenal, including 20 1,800-ton subs, and has several battle-ready submarine bases on both the East and West Sea. That's 3 times more than what the South has. South Korea currently operates a total of 14 submarines, including 5 1,800-ton subs. The new development opens up a new chapter in submarine warfare and will force Seoul to boost its defenses to counter the threat, an action that is likely to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
And over in the Ebola outbreak, the Australian government is facing quite a backlash after it carried out a blanket visa ban on citizens of the West African countries worst hit by Ebola. The ban applies if you're coming from Liberia, Sierra Leone, or Guinea. Australia's immigration minister told Parliament on Monday the country had stopped processing any visa applications from affected countries, including those for asylum. Australia explained that its first priority was to protect its borders, as the disease would get out of control if it hit the Pacific. That did not ease the deep disappointment, however, with Sierra Leone's information minister flatly calling the move discriminatory. And on the country's economic front, Korea posted another current account surplus in September, and that is 31 months in a row now. The Bank of Korea says the surplus stood at $7.6 billion last month, up $420 million from a month earlier. The central bank attributed the rise to strong exports that went up 4.2% from the previous month to over $50 billion. The deficit of services account, which includes spending by Koreans on overseas trips, shrank to $280 million from the $730 million recorded in the summer vacation month of August. The unit price of Hyundai Motor's exported autos reached a record high in the third quarter thanks to luxury models like Genesis. The Korea Automobile Manufacturers Association says the average unit price of Hyundai cars sold overseas went up nearly 5% in the July to September period from the previous year to almost $17,000. That comes despite a drop in the number of cars exported and the total amount of exports. Hyundai sold nearly 9,800 units of its Genesis model in the third quarter, a whopping 60% rise from a year earlier. Supporting startups and fostering small and mid-sized companies as major exporters, that is at the heart of President Park Geun-hye's drive to turn Korea into what she calls a creative economy. But there are already signs that startups have a leg up on their much larger Korean counterparts in the global market. Song Ji-sun explains.
Scanning fingerprints is now a common way of keeping work hour records for employees. This Korean company called Suprema has won global recognition for developing and marketing the widest range of products in biometrics and access security industries. As the only company in the world capable of rolling out all products by using its own technologies and parts, it grabbed a 60% share in the fingerprint recognition module market in less than 15 years since its founding.
Many come up with business ideas, but the key to success for startups is commercializing those ideas. We've proved our technical prowess by repeatedly winning in the industry's most coveted competitions.
Suprema is one of some 63 Korean startups that enjoy #1 market share in the global stage, according to Korea's Small and Medium Business Administration. Although the Korean corporate sector is best known for the success of chaebols, or conglomerates, startups account for nearly half of Korea's 130 companies that have grabbed the largest market share in the world. Large companies represent only a quarter of them. The startup stocks range from manufacturers of juicers to vessel engine bearings.
Aggressive investment in research and development is the key to startups could keep their lead in the global market. The leading startups are also actively diversifying their export markets, shipping their products on average of 31 countries overseas.
Even if Korean startups manage to develop competitive technologies, many of them need support in other areas.
These startup businesses venture overseas markets solely with their technologies, but they lack efficient means to gain access to global clients. The government can help them win recognition by arranging exhibitions and other international events.
Industry experts also point out educational reform is needed to foster entrepreneurship and creativity badly needed to turn Korea into a trendsetter from a fast follower. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
Video clips made by foreigners featuring Korea and its culture are everywhere online these days, and in response to the popularity of these clips, ARIRANG TV has sponsored a contest for videos and photos about Korea every year since 2012. And our Im Yoon-hee joins us to talk about this year's contest. Welcome, Yoon-hee.
Thank you for having me. So this year marks the 3rd edition of this contest. Now new to this year, they also added a photo narrative portion as well, and that's for any participants who maybe have limited access to the internet. Now as a result, we saw more entries than ever. So take a look at what some of this year's contestants have put together.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and ARIRANG TV co-held its 3rd video and photo contest about Korea, providing an opportunity for expatriates to share their impressions of the country. This year, the contest received 786 entries from 94 countries, all under the theme of "To Me, Korea Is." The best represented 137 videos were chosen to win, ranging from Gold Award for the winner to Participation Awards.
We held the contest because we thought it would be a great opportunity for foreigners to explore Korean culture and showcase their impressions of Korea to other expatriates. We expect that the contest would support the Foreign Ministry to strengthen its cultural and public diplomacy.
Participants produced either a video or a photo essay of what they experienced here in Korea. Leticia Godenier mentioned her Korean friends, Korean traditions, and culture to describe what Korea means to her.
Actually, I've been twice to Korea before, and I really enjoyed my staying in Korea, so I wanted to share with people what I felt when I was in Korea. In Belgium, I have the feeling that my culture is really young, and I feel that Korean culture is traditional and modern, and it's what I like.
2 videos were selected to be the best ones this year. Shane O'Rourke from Canada was one of the first prize winners. He learned about Korea by listening to K-pop. He even made his debut as a singer through a Korean television singing competition in 2010. In the video, he portrayed his journey to become a K-pop star. It was to convey a message that Korea is a second home country, a place where he can make his dreams come true.
I feel very honored to have been chosen out of so many different videos. The video is about what Korea means to me and my experience, my personal experience as of how I started to learn Korean culture and how I became more adapted to it.
The other first place gold winner is Joshua Carrot, a well-known YouTube star here in Korea for his own YouTube channel, Englishman. The channel introduces a series of hilarious experiences he held in the country. He said he started producing videos about Korea to show his foreign friends and tell them how much he liked his study abroad experience in Korea. He shared with us some of the advantages of visiting the country.
Well, as you can see, there's just a huge variety. Like in Korea, you really can do anything. You know, the food is amazing, the people are so nice, there's so many fun things to do. And just the culture is so warm, it's welcoming, and so it enables you to do those things.
The contest gives a glimpse of Korea through the eyes of foreigners. It will be held again next year with a new theme to hear more about life in Korea from expatriates.
Well, Uni, I think I saw those videos and they look very, very professional.
Right, so some of these videos did go viral, so I'm sure you've seen some of them online. But that's what they were saying this year. The entries, more so than past years, really did show professional quality to them. And so they had a really tough time deciding the winners. But if you want to participate, if you missed this year, you can always participate next year, right? So and hopefully a different theme next year.
Right, and what are some guidelines for those who want to participate next year?
Right, so anyone wanting to participate next year, all they have to do is create like a 3-minute video or a photo narrative, and they have to submit that online via YouTube or another social website. But it's available to all foreigners either living in Korea or abroad, or ethnic Koreans who are abroad or in Korea as well. So anyone without a Korean passport, I guess. So foreigners in Korea who want to share their Korean experience.
Sounds great. I hear that there are like prizes, big prizes for them.
Right. So this year they actually won, the grand prize winner actually won a Kia car.
Wow.
And so we'll have to see what they offer next year, but definitely some big prizes worth, submitting an application for.
All right, Uni. Thank you for the report.
You're very welcome.
The air is getting colder by the day. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Cold mornings are becoming an unusual thing these days, and Seoul started off at around 5 degrees, which is expected to go up around 15 degrees more and hitting the daytime into the 20s. Another temperature gap is expected between the day and night, so make sure to layer up at these times. And we have a fairly clear sky today, except over in the southern regions where it will remain cloudy all throughout the day. Along with some of that, dry weather advisory is still in effect over in the mountainous regions of Jeju Island and in Gangwon province. And besides that, we have a nice typical fall weather for you to go out and just enjoy. And for our readings for today, Seoul will peak at 20 this afternoon. The southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak to 22 and 21 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops out at 20 as well, while Dokdo hits 17, while Namgungang will be a bit higher at 18 degrees. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Michelle. That's all for now. I'll be back at 4 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.